Emma stood outside the cafe the next morning, her umbrella dripping with the last remnants of Seattle rain. The air smelled faintly of roasted coffee and wet pavement. She'd arrived 10 minutes early but had circled the block twice before. Finally stopping in front of the glass doors dot through the window, she could see the cozy space inside, couples talking quietly. A student hunched over a laptop. A barista calling out names. It was ordinary, so painfully ordinary. Yet her chest felt like it was holding a thunderstorm. And then she saw him. Daniel was sitting at the corner table by the window. It's the same spot they used to share on Saturday mornings when coffee dates had been their ritual. He was fidgeting with his cup, running his fingers along the rim as though it gave him something to hold on to. His hair was a little shorter than she remembered, flecked with the first hints of gray at the temples. His shoulders seemed heavier, like the weight of time had settled on him. But his eyes, when they lifted and caught hers through the glass, were the same. Blue, steady, hopeful, and uncertain all at once. Emma hesitated. For a brief second she thought of turning around, disappearing before he could stand up. But her feet carried her forward. Into the warm hum of the cafe, the bell above the door chimed, and Daniel rose too quickly from his chair, almost knocking it back. He smiled nervously, his hand halfway raised before dropping it, unsure whether he should hug her or just wave. "You came," he said, his voice softer than she expected. Emma nodded, slipping out of her coat and hanging it on the back of the chair across from him. Her hands were trembling, but she steadied them around the coffee cup the barista had already left for her. Black coffee, just the way she always ordered. The details startled her. He had remembered. "Of course I came," she said, though her tone was sharper than she intended. "You said you had something to tell me." Daniel sat back down, his fingers tapping lightly against the table. For a moment, he simply looked at her, as if memorizing her all over again. She felt his gaze and hated that it still warmed her. "I don't know where to start," he admitted finally. "The beginning usually helps," Emma replied, folding her hands around her cup. Her voice sounded calm, but inside she was unraveling. Daniel nodded, his jaw tightening. "The truth is, Emma, I left because I was scared, not because of you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. But I wasn't ready to be the man you deserved." Emma's throat tightened. She had imagined this conversation so many times, but the reality was harder than she expected. "You disappeared, Daniel. No explanation, no goodbye. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" His eyes closed briefly, as though her words cut. "Him I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I thought I was sparing you from my weakness. I thought if I walked away you'd find someone better, someone who wouldn't doubt himself the way I did." She shook her head, tears pricking her eyes. "You didn't spare me. You broke me. Do you know how many nights I stayed awake wondering what I did wrong, wondering why I wasn't enough?" Daniel reached across the table, but stopped just short of touching her hand. His voice cracked when he spoke. "You were always enough." "I wasn't." The cafe around them buzzed with quiet. Conversations, the sound of the espresso machine hissing, cups clinking against saucers. But Emma felt as though the world had narrowed down to the space between her and Daniel. She wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the bitterness that had protected her for so long. But seeing him now, hearing the sincerity in his voice, she couldn't deny the part of her that still ached for him. "You don't get to just say these things now," she whispered, her voice trembling. "After all this time." "I know I don't deserve another chance," Daniel said quickly. "I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to let me try to rebuild what I broke." Emma looked down at her hands, her knuckles white around the coffee cup. Rebuild, the word was heavy. It wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about trust, about risking her heart again. Could she really put it back in his hands? She lifted her gaze, searching his face. He wasn't the same man who left her. The cocky charm was gone. In its place was someone older, more fragile, more real. "Do you still love me?" she asked suddenly. the question slipping out before she could stop it. Daniel's eyes widened, but he didn't hesitate. Yes, I never stopped. The answer hit her like a wave, pulling her under. She wanted to believe it. She wanted to let herself fall into the comfort of his words. But love hadn't been enough before. Why would it be enough now? Emma leaned back in her chair, exhaling shakily. I don't know if I can trust you again, Daniel. He nodded slowly, his voice quiet but firm. Then let me earn it. Let me prove to you that I'm not the same man who walked away. For a long moment, Emma said nothing. The cafe carried on around them, ordinary and unbothered, while her world teetered on the edge oath. Days after the cafe meeting passed like a blur for Emma. She went through her routines, opening the bookstore, arranging displays, chatting with customers, but her mind wasn't truly there. Daniel's words echoed inside her, refusing to fade. You were always enough. I never stopped loving you. Let me rebuild what I broke. She wanted to dismiss them, to tuck them away like a novel she'd outgrown. Yet every time she tried, the emotions surged back, raw and unrelenting. That night, she sat on her couch with a book resting on her lap, unread. Her apartment was quiet except for the sound of rain tapping against the window. She pulled the blanket closer, staring at the page without seeing the words. She hated that one conversation had unraveled her so completely. A knock at the door startled her. Was too late for neighbors or deliveries? She hesitated, heart pounding as she padded barefoot across the wooden floor. When she opened the door, Daniel was standing there, drenched from the rain. His hair was plastered to his forehead, his coat soaked through, his blue eyes locked on hers, intense, desperate. I'm sorry, he said immediately, his voice breaking. I know I shouldn't have come. But I couldn't go another day without telling you everything. Emma's chest tightened. Daniel, it's midnight. You can't just show up like this. I know, he whispered, his breath clouding in the cool air. But I need you to understand. Leaving you was the worst mistake of my life. I thought I was protecting you, but all I did was destroy both of us. I don't expect forgiveness. Tonight, I just need you to know the truth. She crossed her arms, trying to shield herself from the storm inside as much as the one outside. And what truth is that? That I never stopped loving you, he said, his voice trembling. Not for a single day. I tried to move on, tried to pretend I didn't care, but every road led back to you. Every silence was filled with your voice. Every dream ended with your name. Emma felt tears sting her eyes, but she fought them back. Daniel, you don't get it. You left me with nothing. I had to pick up the pieces on my own. I learned how to live without you. And now you come back asking me to open my heart again? Do you realize how dangerous that is for me? His eyes softened, but his words held conviction. Yes, and I'd rather spend the rest of my life trying to earn back your trust than live another day knowing I didn't fight for you. For a moment, silence hung between them, thick and heavy. Rain splattered against the pavement, the sound of passing cars filling the void. Finally, Emma stepped aside, her voice quiet but firm. Come in before you catch pneumonia. Okay. Daniel entered, dripping water onto her rug. She fetched a towel, tossing it at him with more force than necessary. He chuckled softly, rubbing his hair, but his gaze never left her. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, a chasm of hurt and longing stretching between them. Emma pulled the blanket tighter around her, refusing to look at him at first. He broke the silence. I don't expect you to decide tonight, or tomorrow, or even next month. I just want you to know I'm here. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I'll wait. His words stirred something inside her she had buried long ago. Hope, dangerous, fragile hope. Finally, she turned to face him. Her eyes were glassy, but her voice was steady. You hurt me in ways I can't explain. You broke my trust. But part of me never stopped loving you either, Kate, and that terrifies me. Daniel's breath caught. His hand inched toward hers, stopping just short. Then let me turn that fear into something else. Let me prove I can be the man you always believed I was." Her heart raced. She stared at his hand at the space between them. And then, slowly, almost against her own will, she placed her hand over his. His fingers closed around hers with a gentleness that spoke of both apology and promise. The contact sent a shiver through her. Not from the cold, but from the recognition that despite everything, her heart still knew his. "You don't get unlimited chances," she whispered, her voice breaking. "This is the last one." Daniel nodded, his eyes glistening. "I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." They sat in silence after that, hands entwined, listening to the rain. The world outside was still storming, but inside something fragile and new was being born. Emma didn't know if they would make it, or if her heart would survive another break. But she knew one thing: she wasn't the same woman she had been a year ago. And he wasn't the same man. That call hadn't just changed her evening. It hadn't just shaken her mind. It had changed her heart. And maybe, just maybe, it had given them both a second chance at the kind of love they had once only dreamed of. Emma Harper had always loved the smell of books, the faint trace of paper, ink, and dust that seemed to hold memories older than herself. Managing Oak Street Books in downtown Seattle wasn't just her job, it was her safe space. Every morning, she unlocked the glass door with a small smile, feeling the quiet promise of another day among the shelves. And every evening when she closed up, there was a different silence, a softer one. Like the sigh of a friend who knew her secrets. That evening, the rain had just started, pattering against the shop windows. Emma was moving slowly, stacking the last pile of books onto the staff picks display. She ran her fingertips over the cover of a well-worn copy of Pride and Prejudice before setting it down. The world outside was gray, but the warm glow of the shop lights gave her comfort. She reached for the light switch near the door, humming absent-mindedly when her phone buzzed from inside her bag. She almost ignored it. She rarely got calls at this hour. And besides, she was eager to get home, change into her worn sweater, and lose herself in a cup of tea. But something made her check. Maybe it was habit, maybe it was fate. The screen lit up and her breath caught in her throat. Daniel Miller. Her heart dropped so quickly she had to steady herself against the doorframe. The name alone pulled her back to nights when laughter spilled across her tiny apartment. Back to the soft warmth of holding someone who felt like home. Two promises whispered in the dark that had later turned to silence. It had been 14 months since their last conversation. 14 months since he had walked away without explanation she could understand, leaving her with questions that never found answers. She had convinced herself she was done waiting. She had told herself she had moved on. And yet here he was, appearing again, not in person, but in the one place she hadn't prepared for: her phone screen. Emma froze. Her thumb hovered, torn between red and green. She could reject the call, keep her fragile peace intact. Or she could answer and risk shattering the careful wall she had built brick by brick. The phone kept buzzing, insistent, demanding, and then, before she realized it, her thumb moved on its own. She answered, "Hello." There was a pause, and then the voice she hadn't heard in so long filled her ear. Emma, her knees weakened. She closed her eyes, trying to calm the storm inside her chest. The sound of his voice, so familiar, yet distant, felt like a song she'd forgotten she knew the lyrics to. She forced her tone to be steady, though her heart trembled. "Daniel, why are you calling me?" For a moment, all she heard was his uneven breathing, as if he were gathering courage. She almost hung up, afraid of what was coming, afraid of reopening wounds she had buried deep. Then Daniel finally spoke. His voice was softer than she remembered, uncertain in a way that caught her off guard. "I know this is unexpected, but I had to call. There's something I need to tell you." Emma gripped her bag tighter, her pulse loud in her ears. The rain outside grew heavier, streaking the glass windows of the bookstore. As if even the world knew something was shifting. She swallowed hard, caught between anger, longing, and the ache of too many memories. She didn't know if she was ready. She didn't know if she even wanted to hear him out, but she couldn't deny it. His voice still had the power to reach the part of her she had tried so hard to protect. And in that moment, standing alone in the quiet bookstore with the rain falling outside, Emma realized something terrifying. This call might change more than just her evening. It might change everything. Emma stood in the quiet bookstore, her phone pressed against her ear, the sound of Daniel's breathing pulling her into a past she had fought hard to escape. "I know I don't have the right," Daniel said finally, his voice low, trembling with a mix of courage and regret. "But I need to see you. There are things I never said, things I should have." Emma's grip on the phone tightened. Her heart raced in a way that both angered and frightened her. For months after their breakup, she had replayed conversations in her head, searching for answers. Why had he left? Why had he chosen silence over honesty? She had cried into her pillow, staring at the ceiling, feeling abandoned by the man who once swore she was his forever. And now, after more than a year of nothing, he wanted to meet. Her first instinct was to laugh bitterly, to remind him of the nights she waited by her phone, of the texts she sent that never received replies. Instead, her voice came out in a whisper, heavy with unshed tears. "Daniel, you can't just walk back into my life like this." There was another pause, and then his words came rushing through the line. "I made mistakes, Emma, big ones, and I regret every single one of them. Please, let me explain. Just one coffee. That's all I'm asking." Emma leaned her back against the cold glass of the shop door. Her reflection stared back at her tired eyes, pressed lips. A woman who had worked so hard to move forward. She didn't trust her reflection in that moment. It showed the cracks she had tried to cover with routine and smiles. Why now? She thought bitterly. Why after I pieced myself back together? But despite the bitterness, there was something else inside her too, a flicker she couldn't put out. The sound of his voice carried a kind of vulnerability she had never heard before. Her mind warred with itself. He left you. But he sounds sincere, doesn't deserve another chance. But what if this is closure? She closed her eyes. Can't just say sorry and expect everything to be fine? "I know," Daniel replied quickly, as though afraid she'd hang up. "I don't want to erase what happened. I want to face it, to explain I owe you that much." Emma's heart twisted. She remembered the last night they had together, sitting in her small kitchen, laughter mixing with candlelight. She remembered the way he looked at her then, like she was his whole world. That memory was sharp, a blade she had carried silently, refusing to admit it, still cut. "Daniel," she began, her voice unsteady, "I don't know if I can go. Back there, to us, to everything we were." "I'm not asking for that," he said, though his voice betrayed a longing he couldn't hide. "I'm just asking for an hour. Tomorrow, coffee. If after that you never want to hear from me again, I'll respect it. But please, give me this chance." Emma turned away from the window, staring into the dim bookstore. The shelves were familiar, steady, unchanging. Unlike her heart, which was caught between anger and aching hope. She wanted to say no. She wanted to end the call, leave him in the past where he belonged. But deep down, she knew herself too well. She knew she would lie awake all night wondering what he had meant to say. Her lips trembled as she answered, "Tomorrow, 10 a.m, Maple and Pine." The relief in Daniel's exhale was almost palpable. "Thank you, Emma. You won't regret it." Her chest tightened at his words. She had regretted plenty already, trusting him, loving him, believing in a future that never came. The last thing she wanted was more regret. "I have to go," she said quickly, before her resolve faltered. Without waiting for a goodbye, she ended the call. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma slipped the phone back into her bag, her hands shaking. She reached for the light switch and turned it off. The shop plunged into darkness. The only light coming from the street lamps glowing outside, her footsteps echoed on the hardwood as she crossed the store. Her mind spinning. She pulled her coat tighter around her as she stepped into the rain. Drops tapped against her umbrella, but she hardly felt them. All she could feel was the weight of what had just happened. The call hadn't just disturbed her evening, it had cracked open a part of her heart she thought was long buried. As she walked through the wet streets toward her apartment, her reflection in the puddles stared back, distorted by ripples. A woman torn between past and present. A woman who didn't know if tomorrow would heal her or break her all over again. But deep down, Emma knew one thing. She wasn't just meeting Daniel for answers. She was meeting him because, despite everything, her heart still wanted to believe, and that was the most dangerous part of all.